Hello again, Metas, and welcome back to another Frosty Once Human build guide. Today we're diving into one of my personal favourites, my take on the Control Abyss Glance build. This isn't just any support build, it's a powerhouse of control and devastation that turns you into the ultimate battlefield tactician. Whether you're cleaning hordes of enemies or setting up team for boss meltdowns, this build has you covered. In this guide, I'll be walking you through the ins and outs of how this build works, why it's so effective, and how to make the most of its incredible crowd control capabilities. We're talking full room suppression, nightmare difficulty survivability, and boss fights that feel like target practice. You'll see just how easy it is to keep enemies locked down while your team cleans up, or while you do the cleaning. From gear recommendations and synergy tips, I'll cover everything you need to replicate this powerhouse setup and dominate in your own runs. So grab a snack, pour yourself a cold frosty beverage, and settle in. Let's take a deep dive into the Abyss Glance control build and show you how to turn the tide of any fight. So let's kick things off by taking a look at the main weapon of this build, the Abyss Glance, and what the perks of the gun is. Hitting enemies 14 times triggers Frost Vortex. Weak spot hits count as 2 hits, so in turn if you're hitting the weak spot you only need to hit it 7 times and it will trigger a Frost Vortex. The closer to the center of the Frost Vortex, the higher the Frost Vortex damage, up to 250%. This is important because this is why we're going to pair a certain key armor piece with the gun. And finally, frost damage plus 30%. Next, let's take a look at the calibration. So for my calibration, I'm using a legendary style rapid shot. For fire rate plus 20%, reload speed plus 10%, and attack minus 10% with a double elemental suffix. You could also use a precision style with a double elemental suffix, but I prefer rapid shot as I'll be able to trigger my frost vortexes faster. So now let's take a look at the keyword Frost Vortex and see what it actually does. So it's a continuous debuff with a continuous damage and an AoE effect. Trap enemies within a 4.5 meter radius and inflict 30% psi intensity status damage per second for 4 seconds. Up to 2 Frost Vortexes may exist at any time. The additional damage is Frost Element. It cannot crit, cannot strike weak spots, and will not decay with distance. The actual factor equals 30% times 1 plus Frost Vortex damage factor bonus times 1 plus Frost Vortex final damage bonus. For my accessories, I am running Hammer Compensator, Compact Reflex Sight, Angular Grip, and Extended Rifle Mag, and I'm using Disintegrating Rifle AP ammo as it's not too expensive to make. This gives me a grand total stability of 70, accuracy of 62, range of 63, and a reload speed of 25. So next, let's take a look at the secondary weapons that we use in this build. So to start off with, I use the Bingo, and this has recently been modified and changed. 70% chance to trigger the bullseye upon hitting a weak spot. After switching weapons, the first hit will trigger the bullseye effect. After hitting a non-metal human unit, weak spot damage plus 25% for 10 seconds and can stack up to 4 times. This is what has been changed. However, when you switch to your other primary weapon, you will lose half of your stacks, but you still end up gaining a 50% weak spot damage bonus. And then finally, after defeating a non-meta human unit with a weak spot hit, attack plus 15% for 20 seconds. For my calibration, I'm using a rapid shot style, bolt pulling speed plus 50%, post fire delay minus 50%, and reload efficiency plus 15% with attack minus 10% with a double weak spot suffix. So what is bullseye? Let's take a look at the keyword and see what it does. It's a continuous debuff. Highlight marked targets will be outlined and suffer from vulnerability plus 8% for 12 seconds. This in turn means that they receive 8% more damage. And for my accessories, I'm running an integrated suppressor, Raptor optics sight, tactical SR mag, and tungsten SR AP ammunition. This gives me a ground stability of 73, accuracy of 66, range of 93, and a reload speed of 57. For my other secondary, I like to use the D50 Wildfire. This has a 60% chance to trigger the bullseye when hitting the target. There is an 80% chance to spread the bullseye to one enemy within 15-meter area. If there are no enemies within the area, weapon damage plus 25% for 10 seconds. When hitting a weak spot of marked enemies, attack plus 3% for 10 seconds, up to 3 stacks. I like to use the D50 Wildfire when I'm running through silos and there's lots of ads, but I prefer to use Bingo when facing bosses as it is a single target and I can gain the weak spot damage. And for my melee weapon, I'm running the Kukuri knife. This can be dropped from world drops such as silos or boss fights. I prefer to run the first encounter of Ellie Labs as it is more often dropped pretty quick. This gains defeating a target grants all weapons attack plus 30% and crit rate plus 15% for 10 seconds. When defeating an enemy with a heavy strike, psi intensity plus 20% and restores HP by 200% of psi intensity. This is the main one that we use to boost our psi intensity to give us an overall better DPS. So now let's take a look at some damage testings. Starting with raw damage output, I'll run a test over 3 mags. After unloading all 3 mags, my highest recorded DPS peaked at 47,000 with a total damage dealt of 929,823. So after applying the bullseye and gaining the ×2 50% weak spot damage from the bingo, I top out after 3 mags with a highest DPS hit of 57,000 and a total damage output of over 1 million. Next is the Kukuri. So after activating the Kukuri's perks by defeating the sticky ice cube, my highest DPS clocks out at 62,000 DPS and with a total damage output of 1.1 million. So after being fully buffed with Bingo twice, which gives you the 50% weak spot after switching, whimsical drink, mixed fried hot dog, and my snow sprite, which is level 5, I get a highest burst DPS of 271,000, which continues to drop but maintain over 100,000 DPS after the next 2 mags, and I finish out with a grand total DPS of 2 million. Here you can see my raw stats. I have weapon damage bonus of 110, status damage of 179. I have elemental damage bonus of frost of 141. And here you can see my damage bonuses towards elites, normals, and bosses. And here you can see my buffed stats. I have a weapon damage bonus of 99%, a status damage bonus of 227%, an elemental damage bonus of 146%, frost vortex damage bonus of 70.8%, and here are my damage bonuses against ads and against bosses. Here you can see the Cradle that I am using. So what I like to do is I use Tactical Leap when I'm running around in world for the Starfall event. However, when running silos, I like to switch out the Tactical Leap for either anti-phase or anti-coherence, depending on what enemy type is in the silo that I'm running. I just want to take a quick moment to say a huge thank you to all my subscribers and viewers for your continued support. It truly means the world to me. Whether you've been here since the beginning or just recently joined the community, I appreciate each and every single one of you. And to those who are watching but haven't yet subscribed, thank you as well. If you're enjoying the content and want to see more Once Human builds, guides and tips, consider hitting that subscribe button so you don't miss out on anything coming up. With that being said, let's jump straight back into the video. So next, let's take a look at the food buffs that really help elevate this build. So for our drink buff, we're using Whimsical Drink, used to gain 25% status damage bonus. For this, you'll need any 1 flower, 1 deviated saffron, 5 purified water, and 5 ice. I prefer to use the bell flower as this gives you enhanced effects of the dishes. When making your drinks, there's a couple things that you need to look out for to help elevate the drink even more. And these are ice treated brain freeze, ice treat effect duration plus 200% and potency plus 30%. This is a personalized mimetic, but it really boosts the effects of the whimsical drink. Secondly, try and get the mimetic advanced stove gourmand. Dishes made at the advanced stove gain base effect plus 30% and the effect duration of plus 50% and crafting time minus 50%. And finally, try to make your buffs with a level 5 Chefsaurus, as the Chefsaurus Rex can boost the effect of your dishes by another 38%. Next, let's take a look at the food buff that we'll be using. And for this, I decided to go with the mixed fried hot dog, used to increase damage by 20% towards enemies affected by the bullseye. For this, you'll need any 1 piece of meat, 2 deviated mushrooms, and 2 corn oil. Again, there's a couple things that you want to keep in mind when crafting this food buff. Try again to have the advanced stove gourmand, as this gives dishes made at the advanced stove gain base effect of 30%, effect duration plus 50%, and again you lose 50% crafting time. Next will be again, make it with a level 5 Chefsaurus, if you have one available, as this gives Chefsaurus Rex can boost the effects of your dishes by another 38%. So now let's take a look at the deviations that we compare with this build. So for my main deviation, I like to run the Snow Sprite Lunar Oracle version. For the Lunar Oracle, deviation appearance changed. Synchronizing ability grants status damage plus 5%, which times 1.5 when sanity is below 30%. Generate ice crystals near the target every 3 seconds. Ice crystals shatter when shot, dealing 100% frost damage to nearby targets and causing them to take 48% frost damage. This is highly effective for clearing ad-dense rooms, as the crystals give you a nice burst DPS. The second choice of deviation will be the new Starfall inversion Polar Jelly. Deviation appearance changed. Synchronizing ability grants plus 5% frost elemental damage. This effect increases by 50% while airborne. This deviant is mainly used if you're fighting targets that don't move around a lot, such as a Trent or maybe a boss that doesn't move around too much. Continuously deals frost status damage to surrounding enemies and forces them to move towards you, increasing frost damage received by surrounding targets by 36%. If frost vortexes are formed inside the radius, grant additional ice spikes. So now let's take a look at the armor sets that really bring this build together. So for our 3-piece, we are running the Treacherous Tides. For weapon damage reduction of 10%, when HP is below 70%, weapon damage and status damage plus 12%. And finally, the HP reduction from low sanity is decreased by 40%. Weapon and status damage plus 10% and further increases as your sanity drops up to 28% at 30% max sanity. For my 2-piece armor set, I'm running Blackstone. Cold and heat resist plus 2.5, which we don't really use, but we use upon dealing elemental damage, gain 1 stacks of warm sensation. Elemental damage plus 2% for 2 seconds triggers 1 time every 0.5 seconds, up to a maximum stacks of 5. This means that when at max stacks, we gain 10% elemental damage. And for our key armor piece, I am running the Covert Walker shirt. Frost Vortex collapses in the center and keeps pulling enemies in within 1.5 times the Vortex range. Now pulls players instead of applying strong control effects. This is the armor piece that allows us to have such good control when it comes to ads and stopping them from being able to move or progress across the map to where we are currently fighting. As mentioned earlier, this armor piece pairs perfectly with the third perk of the Abyss Glance, which is the closer to the center of the Frost Vortex, the higher the Frost Vortex damage, up to 250%. So with this creating like a black hole effect, which continuously draws enemies to the center of the Vortex, we gain the maximum amount of Frost Vortex damage bonus, which is 250%. Last but not least, let's take a look at the mods. So for the Abyss Glance, I'm using Vortex Multiplier with the Frost Vortex suffix. Max number of Frost Vortexes plus 1 and Frost Vortex damage plus 10%, with the aptitude effects of Frost Vortex damage plus 6%, Frost damage plus 4.8%, damage against Great Ones plus 3.6%, and damage against elite enemies plus 6%. For my Bingo and my D50 Wildfire, I like to run Vulnerability Amplifier Precision. The Bullseye adds Vulnerability plus 8%, with the aptitude effects of Weak Spot damage plus 9%, Head damage reduction plus 6.4%, damage against elite enemies plus 4.5%, and max HP of plus 3.6%. For my Helmet mod, I am running Deviation's Expert with the Lunar suffix. Range minus 25%, fire rate plus 10%, and status damage plus 20%, with the aptitude effects of the lower your HP, the higher your status damage up to 12%, the lower your HP, the higher your damage reduction against deviants up to 7.2%, damage against elite enemies plus 6%, and the lower your HP, the higher your elemental damage up to 12.8%. Now, although Lunar Oracle server has gone and we're now in Starfall Inversion, you can go to the Starfall Inversion area, look on Past Shop and purchase Lunar Oracle mods and deviants using gravity crystals. For the Mask mod, I've chose to go with Obliteration with the Frost Vortex suffix. Frost Vortex final damage plus 15%. Each additional enemy within the Frost Vortex adds 15% up to 45%. And with the Covert Walker's chest piece constantly pulling enemies into the center, we gain the maximum amount of damage from this mod. The aptitude effects are Frost Vortex damage plus 4.8, damage against Great Ones plus 3.6, damage against normal enemies plus 10%, and Frost damage plus 6%. For my chess mod, I like to run Ardent Shield Lunar. Due to having low health and playing the low health, high risk playstyle, the Ardent Shield just helps give you that extra bit of damage reduction and survivability. While the shield is active, you gain 15% damage reduction. When the shield exceeds 1,000 single instances of damage, they will not penetrate the shield. This just means you can take 1,000 instances of damage prior to the shield actually breaking. The aptitude effects are the lower your HP, the higher your damage reduction against deviants up to 9.6%, damage against Great Ones plus 2.4%. The lower your HP, the higher your elemental damage up to 16%, and the lower your HP, the higher your status damage up to 12%. For my legs mod, I am running Elemental Resonance with the talent suffix. For each instance of elemental damage dealt from the previous magazine, the next magazine gains elemental damage plus 1% for 15 seconds upon reloading, up to a maximum of 24%. The aptitude effects are elemental damage plus 8%, damage against Great Ones plus 2.4%, max HP plus 3.6%, and status damage plus 6%. Next is the gloves mod, and for that I like to use status enhancement with the talent suffix. You could also use elemental overload, it all depends on which one has the better aptitude effects. Core effects are status damage plus 20%, with the aptitude effects of elemental damage plus 8%, damage against great ones plus 4.8%, weapon damage reduction plus 3.6%, and status damage plus 4.8%. And for my shoes mod, I am running Rush Hour with the talent suffix. Every 10% HP loss grants plus 4% melee, weapon, and status damage, with the aptitude effects of elemental damage plus 8%, damage against normal enemies plus 6%, status damage plus 4.8%, and damage against elite enemies plus 1.5%. And that brings us to the end of the Abyss Glance Ad Control build guide. I want to give a massive thank you to everyone who watched and stuck around until the very end. Your support truly means everything. If you've been enjoying the content and haven't yet subscribed, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any more of my Once Human build guides, tips and gameplay content. Until next time, metters, stay safe, stay strong, and as always, stay frosted.